Coming to you from Champaign, Illinois, this is GovLove, a podcast about local government. GovLove is produced by ELGL, the Engaging Local Government Leaders Network. We engage the brightest minds in local government. I'm Dan Bolin, a local government attorney and partner at the Ansel Glink Law Firm in Chicago. Today is a very special episode because we are live at the 2024 American Planning Association Illinois State Conference. For this episode, we're teaming up with the Only Planners in the Building podcast, produced by the Illinois chapter of the American Planning Association. You may know the host. He is the Professional Development Officer for the APA Illinois chapter. He's also a senior planner at the Lakota Group, where he provides comprehensive planning, on-call city planning, and development consulting services. Please welcome Andy Cross.
Why, thanks, Dan. It's great to be here with you again at the Illinois APA State Planning Conference. I've been looking forward to this.
Look, we had a great time last year. We're doing it again this year. APA Illinois just awarded the 2024 Daniel Burnham Award to an exciting comprehensive plan for the city of North Chicago. Today, we have some special guests that worked on this award-winning project. First, we have an architect and urban planner with experience in different fields of design. His portfolio includes a range of projects such as downtown planning and placemaking, park and recreational master plans, unconventional public spaces, wayfinding, and urban restoration. His skill set ranges from computer-aided graphics, rendering, and branding to construction drawings and on-field site work. He was the lead for the North Chicago plan. Please welcome Siraj Asfahani. Next is North Chicago's Economic and Community Development Director. His department provides guidance, education, and oversight and technical assistance to the citizens and business owners of North Chicago. He was paramount to getting the comprehensive plan project to the finish line. Please welcome Taylor Wegrzyn. Siraj, Taylor, welcome to GovLove. And Only Planners in the Building.
Thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Allow me to jump in here and share that Siraj and I worked together at the Lakota Group. This North Chicago project was underway when I joined the team, and I didn't play a big role in it. So I'm looking forward to learning more about it along with you all.
Andy, you're so humble. I've also done work for the city over the years. All I know is that they're very proud of this plan and this award, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about it too. We are also joined today by our live audience at the APA Illinois State Conference. Please think of questions for the guests and compliments for the hosts, and we will let you share them with us later on. But first, let's get started with our signature lightning round. Siraj, Taylor, please tell us about your career path, starting from the day you were born until today. Siraj, you go first.
Wow. All right, I'll make my mom proud. I was born and raised in Lebanon, Beirut, and I did my undergrad in architecture and graphic design, and I did that at the Lebanese American University, and I can confidently say those were the best 6 years of my life. And then I moved to the US to pursue my master's in sustainable urban development at DePaul University. And halfway through my program, my professor at the time, Marisa Schultz, who was Lakota Group's vice president at the time, hired me as an intern at the Lakota Group, and the rest is history. I'm coming up on 9 years with the firm now. So yeah, I guess just to kind of maybe connect all of it, I guess all of what I do right now is very much inspired by my experiences growing up in Lebanon. I guess it's just, to me, like planning and design is a lot more than just physical spaces. It's really all about solving for social challenges, it being Lebanon or the United States.
So you appeared on a lot of podcasts growing up? Is that what it is?
This is my first one, so.
Oh, okay. Well, tell me about an experience growing up that you've kind of applied in your career today.
I mean, I grew up on the fringes of a slum, so that's been big for me, and just kind of seeing how the architecture and how just living very densely is very important for social aspects of any community. So I believe in density and intensity, and I try to apply that in any community that I work for. So.
Wow, well said. Taylor, can you beat it?
No, I was born in Cary, Illinois, grew up in Crystal Lake, Illinois. Always had an interest in geography growing up. First memory of a map was my placemat there at the dinner table, a map of the world, and always just had that inclination to explore places. And as soon as Google Maps came out, that was like a revelation. All day I was just wasting time visiting places around the world on Google Maps. Then, of course, Legos were a big influence as a kid. SimCity, all those things that have urban planner interest in them captured my attention. So I always knew I wanted to do something with maps or geography or something like that. So ended up at Valparaiso University in Northwest Indiana. I was a planning intern with the city of Valparaiso for 3 years over the summers and special seasons. I was enrolled with the University of Illinois to get my MPA, and then funny story was the day I was going to leave to come here to sign a lease for an apartment, the city of Valparaiso offered me a full-time job as a city planner there. So it was an easy decision for me because I was dating a gal in Valparaiso who was going to be there for a few more years. She's now my wife, so it was a good decision to stay in Valparaiso at the time. And so started work with City of Valparaiso there as planner, also became their transportation manager for the commuter bus system and deviated fixed route systems that they have there. Made the jump over to Mundelein, Illinois to come back to be closer to family, and was a planner there, and then made the jump to North Chicago just under a year ago.
Oh, wow, that's impressive. So Roger Powell played basketball at Illinois.
That's absolutely right. Head coach.
Coached at Valparaiso. Do you know him?
Personally, no. I doubt he remembers me, but yes, we've said hi.
Tell him I said hi.
Okay.
That's the end of our lightning round. You have a perfect score. Congratulations. We can move on with our interview. You won an award for having an award-winning comprehensive plan. I mean, let's start at the very beginning. What were the city's past planning efforts before this project got started?
The city of North Chicago has been doing a lot of planning for a few years. I can think of a few. There's the Foss Park master plan, and just for a little bit of context, Foss Park and Beach is really the only publicly accessible piece of land along the city's boundary. If you know North Chicago, there's the naval station, so that takes up a giant piece of the lakefront, and then there's a big piece that's privately owned, and then sandwiched in between is this small piece, which is Foss Park and Beach. So that has recently gotten a master plan, and under great city leadership and Mayor Rockingham, a lot has been implemented of that master plan. There's a complete streets guide, and maybe a shocker to some, but one of the more recent plans is the 2016 comprehensive plan that was done by CMAP. But a lot of these plans really built a strong foundation for all of us coming in for the 2024 plan, and just kind of allowing us to go deeper with our dive and kind of responding to the evolving needs of the North Chicago community.
I thought you had to wait like 40 or 50 years between comprehensive plan updates.
I don't think anyone in this room would agree.
There's for the listeners at home. There's pitchforks in the back. But so what inspired this kind of recent plan update as far as plans go?
I would say, well, the 2016 plan it was before COVID. I would say that was a big reason that the city really kind of saw a need to get a new plan in place that was post-COVID. The whole world transformed when we all went through this pandemic. We saw life in a completely different lens, and what they had in the 2016 plan is just no longer responded to the needs of today's communities, and that was one reason. And another reason was maybe it just needed to be a little more direct with its implementation kind of action steps.
So there's an identified need for an update in response to the pandemic. What were kind of the steps from identifying that need to starting with the update?
Give me more. I'm not quite sure how to.
What were kind of the steps for this that helped the city get from the idea of that they needed this update in response to the pandemic to getting started with a plan update? This was, well, maybe a little bit before your time, Taylor. But
Yeah,
when did you first hear that North Chicago needed a plan update?
They put out an RFP. It was back in 2021, I believe. So it was right around. And then the responses, all of us came in it was 2022. And then our responses all came in like late 2022. The plan was in the process 23, 24, and yeah, that was it. But, yeah.
North Chicago has a very multi-ethnic population, and so community engagement was, a big part of this. And so, tell us about how you approached it, and how you incorporated it into the planning process.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So North Chicago, if I have my percentages right, it's about 30% African American and about 40% Latino Americano. So yeah, so engagement was really paramount for this process. And we knew that day one. We knew this when we were putting our proposal together during the interview, our first meeting with council, and from there on, it was just top of mind for us. Like, we had to keep going as hard as we can. And what made it even more significant is that during the 2016 comprehensive plan, the team didn't get that much success when they tried to do engagement, and not to anyone's fault. It's really, really tough to get engagement in North Chicago. There's trust barriers, there's fatigue when it comes to engagement. So we really had to be creative, and we had to be even more creative for the some number of population, particularly for the Latino population that might not be documented in North Chicago. So they fear coming to any public meeting that is hosted by the city, so they don't want to show face, they don't want to be there.
I'll jump in one point there too, is we have a lot of community organizers who, to the benefit of the community, they represent a larger group of individuals, but that's not always expressed accurately of the desires of each individual. And so I think there's a conscious effort to try to reach the individuals rather than these kind of designated representatives of the larger community, because we have a lot of nonprofit organizations in our community. They're doing absolutely great work, but being able to reach the people who are working 2 jobs, the single moms out there, that's a difficult audience to reach, and so you kind of have to go reach them where they're at, and that was a critical component of this plan.
Mm-hmm. Totally. We knew from the beginning that like traditional engagement was just not going to work for North Chicago, and before Taylor's time, we tried. We tried having a community workshop, and I think we hosted a workshop at the Neil Science and Math Academy where we had all the exhibits and invited people over. And was it an epic fail? Absolutely. There was maybe like 13 people that showed up, and I remember back at the time, Nimrod Werdo was there, shout out to Nimrod, and both me and him had like free pizza signs, and we're standing outside on a median trying to lure people in, and maybe 3 more came through. Like, absolute disaster, because that's not the way to engage them. So we tried every trick up our sleeves, and I mean, you know how much we have up our sleeve.
A lot.
Just so, like, meeting them at community events, soccer leagues. I think I stationed myself at like laundromats and like
well, give us a couple good stories about what worked when you actually had a good conversation. What did you have to do?
Oh, I think I went up on like a Saturday morning and I just absolutely awkwardly, but sitting at a laundromat for like 4 hours with no clothes to wash, but just like hanging out there. And people just coming in and out with like loads of laundry, and I'm just like sitting there with my stack of like North Chicago information cards and being like, "Hello, do you live in North Chicago?" And they're, some are yes, some are no, but trying to converse with them with their like, socks being tossed in the washer, but it works because you just gotta be, you just gotta be casual about it and just have that easygoing conversation.
Sure. And how was the city able to support your efforts?
They were just open. Like they were they were open to any suggestion that we had. Like one way was, at some point we just wanted to make sure every household got the information, and so we created bilingual mailers that went to all 3,856 households of North Chicago.
You sent a mailer to every household?
Every single household in North Chicago got a bilingual mailer in English and Spanish. And the only reason we were able to do that is because the city of North Chicago gave us the addresses of every single home. And so, they're ready to jump in when we have an idea. So they're there to support any way they could.
And just one last, a question, on this topic. Given the extent you went to, given the multi-ethnic population you had to reach out to, can you summarize 1, 2, or 3 key things that started to really coalesce out of all this engagement, these conversations?
Yeah, I mean the community. What's top of mind for them? It was really 2 main things. It was housing. Housing is a major topic, and I'm sure Taylor can talk a lot more on this, but housing is a major topic for the community of North Chicago. Home ownership is very low, and the plan really tries to address that, but they shared a lot of their thoughts there. And then safety. Safety is a major issue, especially on the northern edge of the city, where it meets with Waukegan and all along 10th Street. So these two topics kept being top of mind, and we heard it on and on. So
like that, and kind of this idea of investing in the existing amenities and resources in the community was extremely important to our residents throughout this process. They were really looking for kind of community-driven efforts as opposed to outside influence, and I think that really shone through the commentary.
Interesting.
As a follow-up, did you bring free pizza today?
No, I.
Sorry. Let's talk a little bit about the city's existing land use. Taylor, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Naval Station Great Lakes and why it's so important to the city?
Yeah, it's the only base boot camp for the Navy, and so each week 800 to 1,500 cadets graduate from the naval installation there. So what that means is they get 3 guests, and so you have thousands of people coming every week into our community. However, we do not have the restaurants, we do not have the hotels, we do not have anything that caters to this audience that's literally coming to our doorstep every single week. And so that's been a focus of the city's efforts for many, many decades. There's been so many barriers to that. Sometimes it's brownfield sites that have just not overcome the remediation challenges that are there. Sometimes it's the market. There's excuses as to why the market isn't there. Perhaps franchisees aren't looking at the audience from the naval installation, those cadets that are graduating. They're just looking at the capture of the immediate residents, And then we're located along Lake Michigan, so naturally you can't go further east to capture market that way. And then to the south we have some of the most affluent communities in Lake County. Lake Bluff's immediately to our south. And so Naval Station Great Lakes is kind of that border with Lake Bluff to the south. It brings in thousands of jobs to our community. We have a growing and great relationship with the Navy installation. But to kind of jump ahead, I think, on some questions maybe later, but they're absolutely instrumental in implementation of this plan. So we have weekly conversations with Navy personnel about how we can work together to implement some of the strategies in this comprehensive plan. That relationship, like I said, it's building. There are challenges. You may have seen North Chicago in the news pretty recently. We've also really fortified, I think, and been supported by elected officials as it relates to this kind of complex dynamic with the Navy installation. We also have the Captain Lovell, James Lovell Health Center here in North Chicago as well. So there's these just unique federal properties that are located in our community, and it's almost 50% of our community is federally owned property. And so there's just so many different complex challenges with that, but also such great opportunity, and why I'm really excited to see where this plan goes.
Very cool. What are some other important employers or institutions in the community that we should know about?
AbbVie is located right along Lake Michigan on Sheridan Road, right in our community. They are a huge partner in a lot that we do. They paid for the Neal Math Science Center pretty much by themselves, and they've been just incredible partners in that regard. And then Abbott is just located to our west in unincorporated Lake County. Procter & Gamble has a facility in North Chicago as well.
Very cool. So, Siraj, these existing land uses, what did you determine or learn from in terms of for future land uses in the plan?
Yeah, I mean, but with future land use, it was really most important for us to try and drive more economic vitality into the community, especially for the downtown area and more local mixed use. I think that was the focus, right, Taylor? Especially like Taylor was mentioning, we have a lot of traffic coming into North Chicago with the families coming in, but there isn't a daytime economy for them to go to. Especially downtown, there's a lot of issues with gambling, a lot of gambling stores, and so we had to try and figure out a new future land use, especially for the downtown area, with infill development opportunities and new concepts like site planning concepts to try and drive a daytime economy, possibly more entertainment, to kind of push downtown into this new next level. And also some urban design improvements for that downtown. So future land use paired up with some urban design improvements for the downtown area particularly. But yeah, I think that future land use was really mostly focused on trying to drive economic development in North Chicago.
Now I've only looked at the plan online. You have a big old printed copy of it there. Do you carry that with you everywhere?
It sleeps next to me.
Oh, neat. So what does that say about the zoning ordinance? What did you learn about the city's zoning ordinance through this process? And are there any recommended changes really in response to the plan that are expected?
Yeah, some of the things that have been recommended in the plan include, of course, everybody's favorite topic these days, accessory dwelling units. Yeah. North Chicago, I think, is a little bit unique, though, in that regard, because we do have so much naturally occurring accessory dwellings and affordable housing here in North Chicago. And so that's a different kind of challenge than it looks like in Crystal Lake or Grays Lake or something like that. Another thing that's recommended is just increasing sustainability in all regards. We're right on Lake Michigan. We have such great natural amenities to our east with the lake and the bluffs there, but also to the west there's some wetlands that could be great amenities that really haven't been tapped into there. And then one of the recommendations in the plan too was to, as Siraj mentioned, there's too much gambling in town. There's gaming parlors all over the place, but we already implemented a moratorium on video gaming. That was done right after the plan was adopted. So that's already in place. We were already working on that even as this plan was being finalized. And then another recommendation is trying to reel back dollar stores. We have, I think, $4 stores in our community, 0 grocery stores. So how can we provide fresh groceries and produce to our community and our residents when some of that market's being eaten up by dollar convenience store types?
Siraj, you touched on urban design, and Dan mentioned some of your background in his introduction for you. So, with this background in urban design, how do you feel like this informed the North Chicago Comprehensive Plan?
Yeah, So I think opportunity sites is and sub-area plans, I feel like are very important to a lot of comprehensive plans that we produce at the Lakota Group, and that really came in handy for the North Chicago Comprehensive Plan, especially for some unique sites that Mayor Rockingham have in mind. One of them is what we call the Sheridan Crossing, just because of where it's located contextually, but it's a site that really is at the tip of downtown and can re-energize what downtown looks like today.
Not only the tip of downtown, but on a doorstep of the Navy installation as well.
Absolutely, yes. So with urban design, with urban design, we're able to show potential of what downtown could look like, kind of giving some road diets for that downtown, kind of slimming it down a little bit, reclaiming pedestrian space, showing a better potential for that downtown being more geared towards livelihood that is pedestrian oriented and less of cars zipping through, but also showing that potential opportunity site with multiple concepts of different land uses on it, and like showing massings and all of that. You're able to show that in a comprehensive plan for multiple sites with that background.
Sure. And more broadly, walk us through kind of your general approach to this plan. We can say planning principles, but walk us through the framework and how you approach putting this plan together, and kind of the main planning principles it sort of projects.
So there are 6 planning principles in this document, and there's housing and neighborhoods, there's economic development, recreation and green infrastructure, mobility and transportation, life and culture, and the 6th is municipal services and utilities. And a lot of people in this room have read multiple comprehensive plans, and maybe listening to these 6 pillars might not be very unique. Like, you see these pillars in different comprehensive plans, so this is not a very unique approach. But what I would say is a little more unique in this comprehensive plan, and what was different is that we took a new approach when it comes to implementation that we call a systems thinking approach. So what that does is, yes, we have 6 pillars and each has its own goals, strategies, and action steps, but when it comes to implementation, it rethinks all of these 6 pillars and it thinks about them cross-thematically. So what it does is it allows you to rethink about these strategies and find the right synergies across these different pillars to recategorize them into the correct pairings. So think about it this way. When you go to a restaurant and you're looking at a menu and it shows like, oh, the cod goes well with Chardonnay, and like the chicken goes well with Sauvignon Blanc or whatever. It's like the same concept of strategies from housing that go well with strategies in park and recreation and strategies in infrastructure. So it's being able to think holistically, and it's not just that we're able to kind of think holistically. It's you're allowing the various departments of the city to also work together, right, and come to the table together when they realize that there are strategies from different pillars that work best when they're paired up together.
Well, this is just too sexy of an introduction. You've got to give us some examples here. And so, yeah, when you talk about a pairing, you kind of give us an example of how a few things came together in a way. And then, Taylor, I'd love to hear from your perspective. I know it's, the implementation phase on the city's part probably hasn't been gone on that long, but you've already checked some boxes that you mentioned. So, Siraj, you first, give some examples, and then Taylor, I'd love to hear from you about how you've been able to administer that from your perspective at the city.
Sure, absolutely. And I want to preface this by saying this is really just common sense. I mean, it's nothing like way too out of the blue or ordinary, but one of the pairings, it's titled A Revitalized Downtown for All. And so it merges 5 different strategies across pillars. One strategy is economic development in downtown, and it's a strategy from economic development. Another is increased pedestrian safety, and it's a strategy from transportation pillar. A third strategy is implementing traffic calming measures, and it's one from transportation. And then the fourth is celebrating culinary and food traditions, which is from life and culture. And then the fifth one is expanding vibrant cultural festivals and events, which is again from life and culture. So it's very straightforward and simple, but when you put them together, it's like, okay, let's work on all of this at once because it makes sense.
Read one more pairing.
Damn, Andy. All right, let's find you another one. Okay, sustainable and innovative future. Consider investing in renewable energy. That's from green infrastructure. Ensure infrastructure adaptation over time. And then encourage smart transportation zoning. And then highlight life sciences and innovation. So each one is from a different pillar, but they're all speaking the same language.
So the real strength in this systems thinking for me as the planner, I guess, is it really creates champions who are multi-dimensional. So you might have a champion who's speaking out from the community who's really into sidewalks, right? All right, well, with these pairings, we can go back to our comp plan, see what pairs well with sidewalks, what's another initiative that we want to accomplish. And now that champion who's speaking out about sidewalks is also a champion for green infrastructure or something like that. So it helps you to hit multiple objectives with one push. And it really makes it plain and simple. You know, if you've got somebody trying to sell one of these, why not get the other thing that goes immediately with it? So we've got a developer wanting to do an infill housing project. Okay, great. But how do we also support green infrastructure there? Can you implement some rain garden concepts, things like that, so that we can check that box off of our comprehensive plan initiatives as well? So that's the biggest thing for me, and what I'm finding is most useful out of these pairings is just having that ability to, whoever's a champion out there, or even if you just need to try to solicit a champion, it gives you such a great tool to push a comprehensive plan just from one little thing that you're getting here to a whole slate of objectives.
That's an interesting systems approach. As we talked earlier, and you were up early this morning, implementing the plan, I'm sure.
That's right.
So does this systems approach, does that make your job easier? Is that as the person responsible, or one of them, responsible for working on it?
You know, sometimes we get stuck in our silos at a city. You know, you've got the public works department doing their thing, you got the engineer doing theirs, and you got the finance director doing their thing. But if you look at it as a whole system, it's so much easier to accomplish mutual benefits, you know, and that goes, that's hand in hand with comprehensive plans. So why we haven't been doing this all along, I don't know.
So you talked about some of the boxes you already checked, some goals you've already accomplished, like short term. What are some of the more or interesting medium and long term goals in the plan that we should know about?
Yeah, one of the ones we already touched on was the rate of rental housing here in town. 70% of our housing is rental. That is a huge difference compared to anywhere else in Lake County. And it just creates so many different challenges for our community than in other locations in Lake County and Chicagoland. So we're really trying to hone in on that. That's going to be incremental steps. That's not something you accomplish in a year, but it's working with different developers, it's working with nonprofits, it's working with financial institutions, with grant programs. All of these things need to be implemented in order to accomplish the goals there. Economic development was also mentioned earlier, and that's a critical component of this plan's vision, is getting the ball rolling. I'm proud to have been part of a team in Mundelein, Illinois, that really rose that community to a new level. And I think it's always having that vision, being consistent with that vision. We've had the luxury of having a mayor who's been there as an elected official for decades and has been part of that constant vision. That's a huge asset to have in any community, to have just that dependable vision looking forward. But so we just kind of need that thing to get the ball rolling, right? We've been looking at the Sheridan Crossing site for 20 years, and there's always a new barrier that gets thrown in there. And so for us, it's okay, if that doesn't work, where else can we look in town that would work? Perhaps it's the downtown. Perhaps it's our western areas, which are a little more modern kind of development patterns. But we've got some great assets with the Navy installation, the Lovell Health Center. How do we build off of these assets for the long term? And we're just going to try new strategies, I think, through this comp plan.
Now, both of you worked in a number of different communities. What did you learn from working on this project? Siraj?
It really takes effort. Like you can't stop. I think with this project, I don't know if I should mention this, but
He's going to.
We'll timestamp this for editing.
No, but so halfway through the planning process, the planning staff absolutely changed on me. So there was 2 planning staff members, and they were gone, and then I was kind of without planning staff for just a little bit of time, and then a new chief of staff came in place, and then they brought the beautiful Taylor, and everything was awesome from there on, because he's really great, and he was able to help with a lot of this. I mean, he has a great knowledge and great expertise, and he was just able to kind of push this plan to the finish line. But any other consultant who just kind of happens to be part of this can just really fumble and just not be able to finish this plan. But what I learned from the planning process, not from North Chicago, is you really have to just keep going, because otherwise, yeah.
With your permission, I'm going to leave that in, because I've worked on long-term projects myself and experienced changes in staff, and that's a natural part of that happens sometimes, and it's difficult to manage, but it's something to manage, and just keep going is good advice and inspiration, really. Taylor, what do you think? What did you learn?
Well, I learned when I took the job that this plan wasn't at the finish line. I thought it was well produced, already buttoned up, and ready to get approved by City Council. And so that was actually a shock to me, because I was misinformed. But it was a pleasant surprise, frankly. Here I thought I was going to go into a position and have someone else's plan, essentially, that I would be implementing, that I didn't have a voice in, and I didn't get a chance to craft. And so I looked at this as a great opportunity to just jump all in, really lean into the Lakota Group. Had already done a lot of the outreach, community engagement efforts, to lean into my predecessors. Nimrod Warder was mentioned earlier. He's a director in Beach Park, so he was still local. We still had access to him to ask questions. But then again, to mention Mayor Rockingham again, he was the elected officials had been maintained there too. So there was that consistency that we could lean in on too. And when they've been mayor for over a decade, there's a lot of knowledge, institutional knowledge there too, that you can lean in on too. And I mentioned these community groups and organizers. They've been a constant presence as well. So it wasn't yes, there was a complete disconnect. You could almost say it was circling the drain, because the staff were just gone for a period of time. We just didn't have the liaisons between the city and the Lakota Group for a number of months, right? But when I was hired on, we were able to reconnect all those re-engaged individuals, re-engaged stakeholders, and really hone in on the quality that had already been put in place, but then bring that to landing. And so, again, I think persistence was something to be learned out of this, to rely on the work you've already done. That's not to be forgotten. That all still matters. And to listen. That's always an important factor, just listening.
Speaking of, do you have any advice for our listeners about what they could apply from this project in their communities? Any lessons, any advice, anything to take home with them?
For me, I'm just the biggest advocate of the pairing concept. It's simple, it makes sense, but I couldn't speak more highly of that concept. It's just so easy to incorporate, whether it's a comprehensive plan you're dealing with, or a corridor plan, or even if you're just looking at a zoning text amendment or something like that. figure out a way to sell it as a multidimensional initiative. You know, how does that text amendment incorporating solar achieve other objectives, right? You know, so just always be thinking on how you can pair and build support and build champions throughout your planning efforts.
I would say community engagement. Just try every trick up your sleeve. Do it until you can't do it anymore. Do it until you think you've had enough, and just keep trying, honestly, because unless you've had enough voices heard, I don't think the plan is strong enough for it to be considered a community vision or a community plan. So,
well, I'm going to wrap up with one question on my end, and that is this. We've talked about logistics and a lot of the work that went into the plan and the framework and the approach and the pairings. So I'd love to hear the thoughts from both of you on what you feel like this plan means to North Chicago, both the residents and the city's leadership. You know, what impact, what impact have you seen? Is there, a lot of support and adulation? Is it like, okay, thank God this is done, now do it? Kind of walk us through how it's working in North Chicago.
Well, I'll say this plan's huge for us, and the Burnham Award really means a lot to us. It legitimizes the work that's been done for decades. This is a new foundation for us. We have the timing of this comprehensive plan is critical. In the background, we've also got a full rebranding going on. We've got a new website we're going to be launching. We've got new staff. I'm a new department head. We've got a new chief of staff as of last year as well. And so there's a real sense of things are happening right now. I'm in one of those positions where I'm planning and building, so I get to wear kind of two hats. And I hear on the other side, I hear a lot of, oh, we feel things are changing. I had code enforcement here the other day, So there's things working right now, and the community's starting to feel that. We're trying to come to a landing on the Sheridan Crossing remediation project that was mentioned earlier. That's 40 acres. That could be hotel, restaurants, etc. So there is definitely a sense of there's a new chapter starting now. This kind of post-COVID chapter. It's a new era for Taylor Swift phrase, I guess. My name being Taylor, it makes sense. A new era for North Chicago, and I truly believe that elected officials, the community, really feels that, and so this kind of legitimizes our efforts there. The vision, we've had this vision, but now we're putting in kind of a new packaging and slightly new directions and new techniques and things like that. But this award's huge for us, absolutely. One more point is post-adoption. So we just adopted this in early August, and the amazing thing is the engagement that's happened afterwards. So I've got developers calling me up and saying, hey, I just heard about this award-winning plan you guys have. Tell me about that vision. I've got community organizers doing the same. Navy installations looking at the comprehensive plan on a weekly basis saying, hey, what objectives are to our mutual benefit can we start implementing on? Wow. So that's one. D187, the school district's also doing the same. So that's what's really incredible and really exciting about this plan is the reaction from the community and how it's not just city staff, it's not just the Lakota Group that are excited about, the whole community is.
Momentum.
Siraj, is the award like a trophy? Does it sit on your desk? How tall is it?
I actually haven't gotten it yet.
I see. Well, let me know when you find out. It is about time for some audience questions. We do want to hear from you. Questions about the plan for Siraj or Taylor. Compliments for the host. Also welcome. Raise your hand. I'll bring the mic to you. Try to keep the cursing to a minimum. I have to edit this. Let's go. You first.
Good morning. I'm Kim Porter. I don't necessarily have a question, but I just have a comment. I want to say congratulations. My very first planning job was with the city of North Chicago, so I predate Nimrod. And it's interesting to hear that a lot of the same issues I dealt with as a city planner are still relevant today. And it's good to hear that you have the doors open with the naval installation there, because like you said, I mean, you guys know everything. You have a daytime population, you have events that are going on, all the graduations, and businesses don't see the value yet. And I had the opportunity to look through this plan. I think this plan is going to help you show them the value and how they will benefit. Because when I was in North Chicago, the Navy kept talking about, oh, don't worry about it. We have restaurants on campus. So don't worry about it. We build the barracks on campus. It's like you're creating this compound. But you do have workers that are taking Metro in from the city that are working at Great Lakes. And so it's important, again, to be able to capture that critical mass of individuals so they can continue to see the value in North Chicago. So I want to say congratulations to all your hard work. When I saw this session, I knew I had to be here because it was just really good to hear all the great work that is going on in North Chicago.
Thank you so much, Kim. Let's definitely connect while we're here.
Yeah, again, the questions are for the guests. The compliments are for the hosts. So,
Did you have anything in your plan about nightlife, safety, implementing, and the whole, because obviously there's a whole third shift of entertainment and safety for pedestrians and women and everything else for your plan?
I think safety is kind of interwoven as a common theme throughout. Less specific as far as nightlife goes, though, because frankly, we just don't have that. We have really one or two kind of bars that attract nightlife kind of attention, and the type of development we would be seeking wouldn't be that kind of entertainment kind of venue. The Navy installation kind of frowns on certain kind of nightlife. A little history, but the Sheridan Road corridor right in front of the Navy installation used to be called the Strip, and I mean it was it didn't have a good reputation there, and so we think we've kind of closed the door on entertaining that kind of venues types. But yes, absolutely, safety is interwoven through just about all the principles in our comprehensive plan, because that was one of the values that came up so often in speaking to the public. We do, crime isn't a thing that people often associate with North Chicago, unfortunately, and it is part of people's daily lives that they have to, hear gunshots, at night. It is not a I'm getting the message here, but it's a reality. It absolutely is. But where it comes through is the community knows that they are more than that. They are more than what Lake and McHenry County Scanner puts out or something like that, or what gets put in the newspaper. They know the amenities and the values that the community is really about, and they want to see that stand through. And so I think the comprehensive plan kind of addresses this in a sense of just be conscious of that throughout, and try to achieve it in that pairing kind of mentality. If you're looking at new lighting along one of the roadways, how is that implementing a safety component? If you're doing a new sidewalk area, how are we making sure that's a safe, inviting area in the community, that kind of thing.
good question and a very good answer. Here we go.
I'm curious if you knew in the end that the plan would have these pairings, or did you look at the strategies at the end and say, hey, these all connect together?
I would say it was so the pairings, the pairings thing and the systems approach was something that actually APA came up with like a few years ago, or kind of highlighted a few years ago. And we kind of just started looking at it maybe halfway through the plan.
Let me just jump in there. That was about the time we had no planners on staff. So one of the opportunities there was that the Lakota Group kind of had some latitude there to just let ideas marinate, let things percolate, and figure out what creative strategies they could just throw in and see if that aligned with the values of the community. And so when we came in, we just kind of when I came in and Chief of Staff kind of re-engaged on this project, we were able to validate some of those things, put those out in the community, and make sure that they were...
That is correct,
yeah.
Cool. So it was in downtime. We were just exploring more. Yeah.
Very cool. More questions. More hands in the air. I saw like, oh, that's a bold hand in the air. Yeah. I know, oh, yeah. Taylor, what's your favorite Taylor Swift song while I'm walking around?
I honestly don't even know.
Hello, my name is Erin Hernandez, and I'm a master's student here at UAUC. I was really curious when you were talking about community engagements and how it's a really essential part of this creation of this plan. I thought it was really interesting how you're able to send out materials to every individual within the community, and I was really curious when it comes to ensuring that you are gathering quality information. What was the best strategy that you found when it came to engaging with this community specifically?
I would say it was when we went out to events. So we went to, the North Chicago is really known for a 2-day event called Community Days. It happens every year. It's a really awesome event. If you haven't been, go. So we had our booth there, and we went for 2 days. I think it was very successful, especially the second day, because we broke that barrier of familiarity. We became a familiar face at the event. But just being there at events, people they're already in a good mood. You're asking quick hit questions, and you're not taking a lot of time from these people. It's just quick and easy. So it was really events. There was that. Soccer leagues was also like quick hit. The moms or dads are on the sidelines, like shouting a few words to their kids and stop them for a quick question. So events.
I think that's critical because, everybody's working a job, or they're, life's busy, so if you just have a workshop meeting and invite people to come, what's their draw in there? They need to have a reason to come out, and as we all know, public engagement just doesn't work if you just say, hey, come tell us your thoughts. You have to literally put it out there and give them a reason to participate. So meeting them where they're at these community events was critical, I think.
We started even calling these, if we wanted to have it be a workshop, we started calling it something different. Don't call it a workshop anymore, just call it like an ice cream social. Have like a pelleter or like something where offer them something. Anyway, thanks for the question.
Meeting people where they are, well said. Question over here.
Yeah, so I think the comment about, in the history of the naval base closing the door to some of these entertainment venues was interesting, and it had me thinking about where video gambling came up a few times in the course of the plan. Unlike most land uses, this is an interesting one, and I'll refer to Dan to tell me if I'm wrong here. The North Chicago City Council could decide tomorrow that they won't renew these liquor licenses, and they could close up all of them within a year. So I was hoping you could talk a bit just about maybe the actual conditions, on the ground and what the conversation is around how fast or how slow those will move in view of the plan, but also if you could talk to a bit about just the role of the planner and do you feel constrained in making those recommendations, or was that just too far into implementing, or is there political considerations, whatever you're comfortable sharing about navigating that both on the staff side and the consultant side? Yeah.
So regarding video gaming, we were comfortable doing a moratorium. So it was saying, hey, this is at the initial onset here, it's just temporary. We need to explore this further because we just need to collect data and look into this, see how prevalent this is, get our numbers right, look at the taxes generated by this use, and just kind of stop it from increasing, because it was, every month you'd get somebody else wanting another gaming terminal or something like that. So we felt comfortable taking that step of just saying, hey, no more for right now, let us look into this. And so that was an easier way to jump in instead of just proposing to City Council, we want to prohibit this altogether right now, or something to that effect. So that made it easier. There's different political voices out there, in the elected officials. There are those who absolutely love gaming and really want it to be a central focus. We have a ward system, and so each alderman has their area of town, and some want it to be kind of a gaming strip. That's to them good. So there was that challenge, but again, I think it just kind of came back to moratorium was easier to implement, and we had the support of the comprehensive plan, at least that draft version at that time, to show the City Council. This isn't just something that we as a couple of staff members have been dreaming up. This is supported by a professional team and other consultants, and this is a concern, and this is something an outsider group noticed right off the bat, basically, is that this was a challenge in our community. And then another thing was just the kind of argument that it's eating away other positive business entities in town. So if you've got a gaming studio, someone's going there and spending their dollars there, and some of that profit's going to a company downstate or elsewhere in the state, or and it's not necessarily staying local. So how can we better support our local businesses that have local owners and managers, and in other more positive ways for the community, I guess. Again, kind of that multi-dimensional perspective as well. We have a young community. The average age is 24. That's crazy for Lake County. And so, if you've got youth all over it, right? So, and if they're going down the street, what?
I was going to say, even without the naval base.
Yeah. And so if that's what they're seeing every time they walk down the block, is every block is a video gaming terminal, is that really a positive influence in those kids' lives?
Right, and to the legal question, yeah, I think depending on what your local ordinance says, you could phase out video gaming or the liquor licenses supporting the video gaming, which for our listeners in other states, that's a requirement here. But what's legal and what's a good idea are different things, which is, I think, maybe why you had a moratorium to study it.
And if you don't mind, you were kind of started that conversation about the Navy installation and kind of that component there. We've also got cannabis is permitted in our community in a certain overlay district. So that's a new conversation we're having with Navy as well. There's a proposed dispensary. They obviously don't like that. If a cadet gets caught with marijuana, their career could be over very likely, So that's a new dynamic as well. But that's why we have almost daily conversations with Navy personnel on, hey, what are the values of the community? What are the values of the Navy? How do we bring those together?
Very good. We're running short on time, gang. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this episode? Any inspiring words to send our listeners forward with into their own communities?
Go visit North Chicago.
Yeah, I like it. And our final question on every episode, if you could be the GovLove DJ, what song would you pick as our exit music for this episode? What do you guys think?
Green Day is really big right now. It's been 30 years, I think, since their first album.
Yeah.
Welcome to Paradise seems appropriate. That's what we're striving for here.
Yeah, very
I'm
nice.
going to let Taylor pick. I'm okay.
A good pick, Taylor. It is a live episode, so we do want to give you the opportunity to sing it live. Go for it. But before we go, Andy, can listeners hear more stories about great projects like this one on Only Planners in the Building podcast?
Why, yes, they can, Dan. How many times already at this conference, even though we're just kicking off, have we walked around and saying, like, man, once a year is not enough to connect. And so my vision for the Only Planners in the Building podcast is to give an opportunity for planners around the state to learn from one another and connect more regularly. And so, I try to have a range of guests to talk about their experiences and tell great stories. Because just getting together once a year like this isn't enough. And I think that there are more stories to tell and more wisdom to share. And so, so we're able to, put together that podcast, not as regularly as I'd like, but I think it's a great project, and I would encourage you guys to subscribe. You can find it on Spotify, and it's a lot of fun putting it together.
And just like the latest season of Only Murders in the Building, you're going to have more A-list celebrities on as cameos, right?
Unquestionably.
All right. That ends our episode today. Thanks to everyone for joining us at the 2024 APA Illinois State Conference. GovLove is produced by a rotating cast of ELGL volunteers. ELGL is the Engaging Local Government Leaders Network. You can reach us at elgl.org/GovLove. We're on LinkedIn at GovLove Podcast. Thanks for listening. This has been GovLove and Only Planners in the Building, podcasts about local government. Bye.